We have breaking news out of the Calgary Flames organization. General Manager Brad Treliving and the Flames have parted ways. Who will be the new GM and what will this mean for the team? We'll discuss that coming up next. So welcome back to another video here at Top Shelf Hockey. As I mentioned, we have some breaking news from the Calgary Flames organization. We already knew that there's going to be probably a lot of changes and the Flames would be one of the teams that would likely be the most talked about during the NHL offseason, considering how their regular season went, falling short of expectations. But General Manager Brad Treliving and the Calgary Flames have mutually agreed to part ways. Of course, he's on an expiring contract. His contract was set to expire on June 30th, and he will not be re-signing and staying on with the Flames as General Manager. So effective now, he is out as Calgary Flames General Manager. He was with the Flames organization since 2014. The Flames have missed the playoffs 5 times in 10 years. Brad Treliving, I think, had what many of us thought a solid offseason, considering what he was up against. He had some really difficult situations on his plate last summer, and he dealt with them the best he knew how, and he managed to pull off some things that looked to be improbable at the time. I mean, of course, he was faced with Johnny Gaudreau facing free agency. I know many were under the impression right up until the 11th hour that Gaudreau was going to re-sign. Gets the phone call. Not happening. So he loses Johnny to free agency. That's a big blow to the team. 100-point player, one of the all-time great Flames, at least especially in recent years. And then he gets the word, pending restricted free agent Matthew Tkachuk has no intention of re-signing long-term and would prefer to be traded. Obviously, so they worked out a deal that was appeared to be a blockbuster deal to maybe kind of keep things in order so they can continue being a top team. Trading Matthew Tkachuk with a new contract in place to the Florida Panthers for Jonathan Huberdeau and Mackenzie Weegar. Before the season starts, he signs Jonathan Huberdeau to a massive long-term deal for $10 million a season. That, so far, not looking good. Huberdeau is still a fantastic hockey player, but you have to wonder, not every player is going to be a great fit with certain line mates, certain coaches, etc. Did not get off to a good start with the Flames, but I think you can put some onus on the player. You could also put some onus on the team and the coaching for how things were handled. Mackenzie Weegar signed a little bit later, early into the season. Also a long-term deal with a lot of money on the table as well. And then they missed the playoffs. I mean, these two guys are, really good hockey players. And, obviously they did their part, but for the most part, didn't have phenomenal years. They also got Nazem Kadri on a 7-year deal in free agency. So Treliving, like I said, under difficult circumstances, brings in Huberdeau, Kadri, and Weegar, and it just hasn't worked. But I know a lot of fans want to point the finger at head coach Daryl Sutter, and, I'm sure to some degree at least, that certainly is the case. I know personally I wasn't a fan of how Sutter handled a lot of the younger players, especially I remember the Jacob Pelche situation, saying when he was asked by media how he thought his first game went, and he was like, put his glasses on, was like, okay, what number was he? And he just read off some stats and they made no comment of it. It seemed to be very difficult to that. So certainly not good look that way. It's been a tough year in Calgary. Lots of questions. Now, with Treliving no longer being in the picture, Don Maloney, who's been with the organization for the better part of about 7-8 years now, is going to be taking over as president of hockey operations, and he will be the interim general manager. It will be a large part responsible for finding the new full-time GM. Of course, Don Maloney, like I said, has had roles of executive vice president and other roles within the team since he's come over to the Flames back a number of years ago. Of course, he's a long-time NHL lifer, was a player first, got into being a GM early with the Islanders shortly after retirement. Things didn't go well there, but like I said, he was a new executive, still young. Islanders ownership was in a bit of a mess at the time too. There's lots of things going on that didn't set him up for success. He was a long-time GM in Arizona, worked with other teams too, and the whole tenure in Arizona to me wasn't the greatest either, but at the same time, like, he's been around a long time. Hopefully he's learned enough over the years that this is going to be a good role for him. Like I said, it's certainly very well experienced into his, I think he's 64 now, so he's been an executive for like 30 years at different levels, different roles, different organizations. So he should be well equipped, hopefully, to be the right person for that job. Obviously well known internally after working with the Flames for some time. So we'll see who the new GM is going to be. Will Brad Treliving explore opportunities for other GM roles, or that may become available. Right now, there's one in Pittsburgh. I don't know if there's any connection there. We'll have to wait and see. But certainly changes are coming in Calgary. There could be more. Let me know your thoughts. Is Brad Treliving, did he do a good job? At the end of the day, this is a mutual agreement. It's not like he was necessarily fired. This very well could have been more an ownership decided, you know what, we're not going to offer you a new contract. It could be more of a case of Brad Treliving saying, you know what, it's time for a change. I want to go. We really won't know. That's why they use the term mutually parted ways, and we will see what happens. But overall, the Flames have been mediocre for far too long, stuck in that middle. Like, they seem to have these good seasons, but then not following up with good playoffs, or miss the playoffs, or in and or out. And they have not been either a bottom team to get some high picks and to really rebuild. They haven't been a consistent top team to contend for a Stanley Cup. They had a real solid regular season last year, but then look what happened. They didn't go too far in the playoffs. So obviously this team needs to be more consistent, and we'll see if the new GM can make the changes to make that happen. So let me know what you think, and we'll talk about more in the comments. If you're new to the channel, make sure you subscribe and stick around. We'll keep you up to date with the news, rumors, and analysis of all 32 NHL teams. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you next time.